Tere hommikust kõigile.
Good morning, everybody.
For everyone, so nice to have you here in Tallinn today. As we are holding our conference in both languages, in Estonian and in English, kindly I ask you to get your gadgets for translation. And if you already find them, then use channel 1 for Estonian and channel 2 for English translation. Ja tere hommikust kõigile.
So good morning, everybody, once again. So our today's meeting here, so as a way of introduction, I would like to say that we are looking at two international languages, major international languages, both Estonian and English. So in order to be able to operate well in the contemporary Europe, it's good to have more than one language, but if you need some assistance, please take your headphones. So now coming on to the subject matter of today, I'm really happy to see you. And of course, we can talk about big plans, big dreams, and big facilities, extensive facilities, which would help us to make sure that these dreams will come true. It's early on in the week, but you say billion a few times and you feel that you're doing really well already. So leaving joking aside, that today we are going to discuss what is on the screen here. So what it is, what we have done so far, what is yet to happen when it comes to recovery and resilience facility. So we hear about billions. As you know, people in the room and people who are watching us over internet, the Estonian share in this pan-European package, which is aiming to improve the life of the citizens and to make sure we meet contemporary needs of the society. So we are talking about 953 million, so it's almost a billion, which is Estonian share. So one part of it, which concerns energy, is our topic today. So before lunchtime, we shall be discussing this in detail. But first of all, I would like to invite here for a brief welcoming words, Minister of Finance, Mr. Mart Võrklaev.
Head siinviibijad.
Dear participants, dear people viewing us online.
Tere hommikust.
Good morning and welcome to the conference today. I'm very happy to see you all. This is an important platform where we have many partners and interest groups and the public who will get together so we can look at the recovery and resilience plan, and we'll be looking at some of the key subjects as competitiveness, resilience and renewable energy. So 2 years ago, in the autumn of 2021, the initial recovery and resilience plan was approved, but a little more than a year later, we had to make some changes because we saw that there were problems with supply chains, high inflation and energy crisis. So these were the events which forced us to adjust, to reassess the situation, and we had to find innovative solutions in order to guarantee long-term recovery of our economy. So I agreed on some of the changes which would first prioritize most critical needs, so looking at the competitiveness, including green reforms, also looking at energy saving, a digital transition in the public and private sector. And one of the priorities was energy security, which is of key importance for us. Energy, renewable energy sources and energy efficiency investments was increased by about 200 million euros, which meant that the share of climate contribution in the measures increased to about 60%. So I'm very happy that right now the amendments to the plan have been confirmed, and we can focus on the implementation of planned reforms and investments. Due to this plan, we have about nearly €1 billion we can use now, and these are the funds which we can invest in our future, and we can create opportunities for new smart solutions. At the same time, these investments will improve our competitiveness, open new export possibilities, and also set the foundation for our long-term economic growth. For example, we have a green fund for €100 million, so investments will be made of 55 million for green innovation and business. Also, we have 100 million for the digital state development, for the building of the tram line of the old port, which is for 3.6 million, and for the reconstruction projects for the apartment buildings. These are only a few investments, but it's a very important injection of funds to the Estonian economy. Dear participants, the challenges of the last 2 years have indicated that we have to be prepared and we have to be able to cope and adjust to the world changing around us. It is more important than ever before, and our efforts to increase the share of renewable energy is necessary so we can move towards safer and more competitive future. Now, the discussions we're going to hold today regarding the resilience plan, that is not only construction, but this is the basis for our tomorrow, which will be more sustainable. As a small and dynamic and efficient country, we have to be a role model which other countries can follow, because we have a green reform, and digital and green transition will create the preconditions for that. So achievement of planned objectives are important for, and we need to have this both state and business supporting all these plans will be made for this plan. And we want to make sure that this engine will work well. I hope you'll have very good discussions today.
Ja arutelusid kindlasti tänase päeva.
I'm sure that in the course of the day we will have many discussions on the European level more generally, and also regarding the projects in Estonia and competitiveness. But now I would like to pass the floor to the next speakers for an overview of Estonian activities, how Estonia has implemented the Recovery and Resilience Plan. We have two speakers, Siim Tenno from the Ministry of Finance and Urmas Vaino from the State Shared Services Center. The floor is yours. Good morning, dear guests. As the Minister mentioned in the opening, then the focus of today's event is on RRF and its role in increasing the resilience and competitiveness of the economy. During the panel discussions, we will go in depth, but first, let's take a look at the principles and foundation of the facility and what were the objectives. My name is Siim Tenno from the Ministry of Finance. I'm the head of the External Instruments Unit, and Urmas Vaino up on stage with me is the Deputy Director General of the State Shared Services Center. First, let's go back to 2020 when Europe tackled the COVID pandemic. The economy was in difficulties. The GDP of the Eurozone dropped 6.6%, and in this situation it was clear that something has to be done, and it was. The member states agreed on a recovery package, the Next Generation EU, in the volume of 750 billion euros that would help turn around the economic trends in Europe, improve competitiveness, and also combat climate change. One of the main elements of the recovery package is RRF. The facility was established in February 2021, and in order to use the fund, member states have submitted their recovery plans that includes reforms and investments from the beginning of the pandemic, February 2020, until summer 2026. And the reforms and investments in the plans have been described through very specific outcomes and objectives that have been the basis for European Commission for disbursements. So it is an outcome-based instrument, the first of its kind, and so at least 37% of the budget had to go towards climate measures and 20% towards digital measures. Estonia submitted its recovery plan in June 2021, and it was approved in autumn 2021, both by the European Commission and Council, and we started implementing it. Unfortunately, in 2022, many complications arose, as the minister mentioned: Russian aggression in Ukraine, inflation rates, energy crisis. It all created a situation where by summer 2022, it was clear that we had to open up the plan and revise it. And at the same time, European Commission had introduced REPowerEU plan in order to transition to cleaner energy, untie ourselves from Russian fossil fuels, increase energy efficiency, and deal with security of supply of energy. And for us, this was very good timing, because we were dealing with changes to the plan. We could integrate into the plan the 90 million REPowerEU resources as well, and go through the negotiations with the Commission. And so we were able to submit the revised plan together with REPowerEU chapter, and in summer it was approved. Now, if we look at what we have planned in the general part of the recovery plan and the REPower chapter, then the total volume of the plan is 953 million euros. It includes 45 measures, 17 are reforms, and 28 are investments. Altogether, we have planned close to 60% of the measures for climate contribution, and 24% different digital development measures. And in the framework of all of it, we have agreed on 133 outcomes that we're working towards. And now, if we think which sectors these results and outcomes should come from, then one of the focus areas of RRF is digital. And in digital, we are contributing to digital state development in considerable volumes, but also different business digitalization and automation subsidies. And the climate investments and measures package is even more broad. In addition to the REPower plan that is directed to accelerating renewable energy sources, we have many resource efficiency measures, energy efficiency measures, renovation of residences and buildings, and also sustainable transportation is important, so that we reduce the CO2 emission, and we could improve mobility for people. And also the health and social protection chapter is also directed at people. The focus is on healthcare infrastructure and labor market services. Now, when we look at some of the examples that we have accomplished or that we are planning to accomplish in the next 3 years, then Urma will provide us an overview. Thank you, Triin. Yes, a lot has been done. There's a lot to do still. But first, I would like to extend my gratitude to the Commission and the family of RRF in Estonia, who have made all the plans, created the structures, and we wouldn't be here without the people who are sitting in this audience and who are sitting behind screens. Thank you to everybody, and thank you to the partners. Triin gave an overview of the primary sectors and areas where the instruments are used, but I will speak more about the project level. Here we can see the allocation of the budget and how we are currently doing. 18% has been directed into the economy already, and out of the 7 planned payments from the Commission, 2 have been made. Of course, it is time critical in the sense that by 2026 all the activities must be implemented, but I believe we will manage it nicely. Now, when we look at it by topic areas, then business digital transition. This is one important part of the Estonian 2035 strategy as well, and especially when it comes to skills, upskilling, and reskilling. And it's very important to improve the ICT skill set so that we have the skills for the digital transition and redesigning ICT training and qualification. That's very important, and we want to manage the processes more efficiently. Second part is supporting the economy's digital transition in companies, and we have planned for quite many calls for proposals. So 87 projects are underway, and in e-construction, 87 projects. So these are open calls for proposals, and companies can come and ask for support based on their needs. Also, we have paid a lot of attention to increasing the competitiveness of companies and business centers have been established in Seoul and Singapore. Others are being established. 13 export strategies are being planned, and also introduction of Estonia on target markets. Another example, the Digital Summit in Tallinn and the African Business Forum has taken place. So quite a lot has been accomplished already, and the volume is 116 million euros in total. The next important part is the green transition for businesses. Green transition is something everybody has heard about. Everybody knows that it can be expensive and burdensome for companies, but I'm happy that the government has taken on the obligation and liability to invest certain means in the green transition so that businesses can cope with it better, and quite a lot of resources have been directed there. Now, when we look at what the support schemes are about, then security of supply investments, and then centers to support companies in green transition, 15 million, and then hydrogen technologies, 50 million. Green fund establishment that the minister also referred to, 100 million, so that's quite a big sum. And then resource efficient green technologies in industry, that's 29 projects and 21 million, and the bioresources valorization, 13 projects are underway and 26 million has already been invested to the markets of how the bioresources can be valorized. In addition, industrial companies' business model change. We know that the green transition means that companies actually have to change their operational model somewhat to stay competitive on foreign markets, and also in Estonia. Certain requirements and liabilities will come, and quite a lot of assistance and support has been foreseen. And green technologies development programs and the open calls and 5 accelerators have been planned for. And companies' green transition, 255 million euros, that's the biggest volume. And then healthcare and social protection, 82 million. And contributing to social protection and healthcare is also very important. Establishment of Tervikum in Viljandi. It's a contemporary health center with better access to healthcare services and social protection and employment. And the goal of this center is to serve not only the residents of Viljandi city, but to serve other municipalities in the county. So it is an excellent, strong, high-quality healthcare services center for the entire region. Also, labor market measures to reduce youth unemployment. measures for 16 to 29-year-olds so that they could come to the labor market quickly and cope there nicely. And there are quite many support schemes to that end for training support and also income support, salary support. And also the energy efficiency, that is one of the most popular measures and easiest to initiate because there are a big infrastructure investments, 98 million altogether. In Tallinn, when you go around the city, you see where the tram line will be built for the old port. So it's not just the tram line. Around the tram line, the city environment will be reshaped to a big extent as well. So that's one part of the integral solution. The overpasses of Rail Baltic, when you go to Viljandi, then around Kangro, you see that some of the forests have been felled and they are preparing the overpasses. And we see quite a lot of activity in this regard. And what else to mention? The municipality investments into non-motorized roads, 5 million. In the media, we have heard opinions, why do we need it? But statistics shows that it improves the quality of life on the local level, and it's much safer mobility option. So I think it's a very sensible investment. One of the most popular support schemes has been that for renovating small residences, and we know that energy bills have been on the rise, so that's one way to mitigate the daily expenses for residents. And of course it also provides for a better, higher quality living conditions. And we have even allocated additional funds there. Then we have the program to improve and strengthen the electricity grid, 36.2 million. So in the east, we have the power transmissibility. But in central Estonia and western Estonia, that is lacking, and we need to support development here. And the offshore wind farm development, for active and passive radar acquisition and to eliminate the height restrictions so that we could build offshore wind farms in the Bay of Livonia, so that we wouldn't have the hindrances to establishing offshore wind farms. Then 122 million towards the digital state. One of the goals of the digital state is user-friendliness, security, and quality of public services. And here we have quite a few approaches. One is a real-time analysis system for anti-money laundering and terrorism financing, to retrieve the data in real time in a secure way and to analyze how the fraud schemes work to take management decisions quicker. Also, we have the proactive government services for private individuals. Right now, there are several portals for communication with the state, but it's better to have a one-stop shop. And the public services quality improvement is very important here. And data management and open data Center of Excellence establishment, 7.1 million bureaucrat program, 10.5 million. So through AI and data analysis, the citizens and companies would have an easier time communicating with the state, the government, and to retrieve data quicker. Digital state basic services and secure cloud infrastructure. This is something we need to continue to invest in consistently, but it has been challenging, and the infrastructure security is vital. It's essential, and we need to invest in it. And very high transmissibility broadband network construction to make sure that fast internet covers Estonia. And in other areas other than centers, we would have fast internet access and to develop our services through that and to have faster and higher quality service provision. and Triin will speak about the reforms. Yes, so Urmo gave lots of examples of different investments and support measures, but the recovery plan has many soft activities as well. So the reforms we are planning in Estonia during the recovery fund year. The main focus areas are healthcare, social protection, transportation, and energy efficiency. When we start from healthcare, then here the priority is the consistency of services, sufficient staffing, and potential integration of services and business continuity. We promise that in 2023 we will commission more nurses compared to the level in 2020 by 5%. And in the coming years, we are also increasing the admission in different specialties, for example, GPs, psychiatrists, internal medicine specialists, to make sure that we have sufficient staffing in the healthcare sector. And also a big block has to do with social affairs and long-term care availability, to make sure that people can live at home for as long as possible, so that the elderly, the seniors, are able to cope at home, and they would have access to social services. And we are focusing also on children with high care need. And we have healthcare and social and educational services integration for them, so that they could participate actively in societal life and be in education. And also we have reform planned in employment. And in summer this year, unemployment support period was tied to the situation on the labor market. So the higher the unemployment rate, the longer the period for paying unemployment benefits. So that was one example of reform promises. But we have also promised to reduce CO2 emissions in transportation through different investments and developments, electrification of railway between Tallinn and Tartu, and also energy efficiency. We are working on establishing a consultation network that covers Estonia, so that people would receive expertise in a situation where they have decided to improve the energy efficiency of their residences, and also different online tools that would help them in their process. So this we are planning a lot of software activities, and that is directly related to how we get the payments from this fund. So we need to make broad-based efforts than just measures and investments that Urma outlined. When we look at the current state of affairs, then we have reported on 29 milestones to the Commission, but there's a long way to go. We have another 104 targets, results that we need to reach. So I wish everybody lots of energy and strength for this common effort, and thank you for the cooperation so far. Thank you.
Ja, suur aitäh ettekandjad.
Thank you very much to these presenters, Triin Tomingas from Ministry of Finance, Urmas Vaino from the State Shared Services Center. I liked your last slide because there's a long way to go and a lot of goals we need to reach, but looks like that this road has been already laid out. So hopefully this will be so, and during the discussions we'll get some more information on it. But now I'd like to invite here the main keynote speaker from the European Commission, and Executive Vice President, Mr. Valdis Dombrovskis.
Honorable Madam Prime Minister, Mr. Minister, ladies and gentlemen, tere hommikust! It is a pleasure to be with you for today's conference and to mark the disbursement of a first payment to Estonia from the Recovery and Resilience Facility. Congratulations. And it's a particular pleasure to return to the beautiful and historic city of Tallinn. For Europe, the last few years have been tough, both economically and socially. We have shown remarkable resilience in the face of consecutive crises, largely thanks to the EU's rapid and coordinated response. However, the geopolitical situation remains highly uncertain and is further aggravated by the situation in conflict in the Middle East. First, we were struck by the COVID-19 pandemic, which disrupted supply chains and led to an economic slowdown. Now we have to deal with Russia's aggression against Ukraine, which shows no sign of ending soon. In February 2022, EU countries were only just emerging from the shock of the pandemic. Back then, we were embarking on the solid recovery path. Russia's war changed it all. It has threatened global food and energy security. It drove inflation to record highs, which for many people triggered the cost of living crisis. Estonia, like other Baltic states, was hit particularly hard. Being small open economies, they were particularly affected by related supply chain disruptions. Investors started to factor in geopolitical risks, affecting availability of foreign direct investment and funding costs. Or take inflation. The three Baltic states were among the worst hit in a recent inflation wave sweeping across the continent, with annual rates reaching about 20%. As a result, people's purchasing power was eroded. All this was only 1 year ago. Today, inflation rates in the Baltic region have fallen back to single digits and moved closer to the EU and Euro area averages. In Estonia, the inflation has come down from the peak of 25.2% in August 2022 to 5% this October. Still, inflation across the continent remains historically high, and for now, EU's economic activity is weak. We do, however, see some more promising signs for 2024. Labor markets remain strong. Both headline and core inflation continue to decline. Still, a growth outlook remains subject to exceptional risks and uncertainty. The European Commission will update its economic forecast next week. Looking ahead, our focus is how to best secure sustainable growth for longer term. This is where the Recovery and Resilience Facility comes into play. To keep the economy on the right track, member states must press ahead with carrying out reforms and investments set out in their national recovery and resilience plans. Provided that this is done properly and fully, the RRF should have a positive impact on all EU economies and societies well beyond its 2026 cut-off date. In the case of Estonia, Commission experts estimate the impact of Next Generation EU could lead to an increase of GDP of between 0.8% and 1.3% by 2026. After 20 years, Estonia's GDP could be 0.4% higher, which would translate into up to 4,000 extra jobs. As you know, the RRF is a performance-based instrument based on verifiable milestones and targets. As such, it contributes 953 million to make Estonia more resilient and sustainable, better prepared for the challenges and opportunities of the green and digital transition. Overall, Estonia is progressing well with implementing its recovery and resilience plan. It is an opportunity to boost the country's economic growth and create jobs. So let me return to the first RRF payment which Estonia receives today. It comes after Estonia successfully completed the first 28 milestones and one target in its recovery and resilience plan. Since Estonia has already received the pre-financing, the payment amounts to 238.5 million euros. This covers reforms and investments in a wide range of areas. They relate to energy, the green and digital transition, labor market, healthcare, green skills, innovation, transport, and also Estonia's audit and control system for implementing the RRF. For example, RRF funding will support the renovation of apartment buildings and small residential buildings. It will help to finance construction of the Tallinn Old Port tram line. This will boost sustainable transport in the Tallinn region by connecting Rail Baltic to sea connections with the Nordic countries through Tallinn Old Port. Let's not forget that Estonia was the first EU country to submit a modified recovery plan to reflect the ambitions of the REPowerEU. As you know, REPowerEU is the EU's response to the socio-economic hardships and global energy market disruptions caused by Russia's war against Ukraine. REPowerEU is particularly important for Estonia in helping to move away from carbon-intensive energy systems and dependence on Russian energy supplies. The modified plan was adopted by Council in June. To accelerate the deployment and take-up of renewables, it envisages developing sustainable biogas and sustainable biomethane and further streamlining permitting procedures. Estonia has also addressed the challenges to diversify fossil fuels imports and ensure sufficient capacity of interconnections without using resources from its RRP. There is impressive regional cooperation to strengthen energy independence, boost decarbonization, and support the transition towards renewable energy. For example, Estonia managed to stop buying Russian gas by cooperating with Finland to put in place a floating storage and regasification unit. Work on synchronizing the three Baltic states' electricity grids with that of continental Europe is progressing well. Investments are on track thanks to major efforts made by Estonian, Latvian, Lithuanian, and Polish transmission system operators. The project will allow the Baltic region to regain full control of its electricity networks and strengthen its energy security. The three countries' agreement to bring forward the project completion date to February 2025 means that they can be fully integrated into EU's electricity grid almost a year earlier than first intended. On the social dimension, Estonia's plan reinforces its social and economic resilience. This is reflected in the launch of the reinforced My First Job scheme, adoption of the Youth Guarantee Action Plan, measures to boost primary health care and long-term care. Let me now say a few words on digitalization. Estonia's RRP dedicates 208 million euros, or 24% of spending, to its digital transformation. The entire amount is expected to be spent on efforts to achieve the digital decade targets. Estonia is well known as a European and global leader in digital public services, where it can serve as a good example for other EU member states. However, there is room for improvement in some other areas, such as digital skills and connectivity. Estonia is just above EU average for basic digital skills. However, it has made significant progress over the last 5 years, narrowing the gap between the percentage of enterprises providing ICT training in Estonia and the EU average. So this shows that Estonia is on the right track. I'm pleased to see Estonia's significant contribution to EU's efforts to reach the digital decade target on ICT specialists. The share of women among ICT specialists is among the highest in the EU. In addition, Estonia has the highest percentage of ICT graduates in the EU. On connectivity, fixed and mobile, digital infrastructure is key enabler for all components of the digital decade. However, at the outset of the digital decade, we are still far from achieving our digital decade connectivity targets. Here, Estonia should do more to boost its relatively low 5G coverage and incentivize the take-up of gigabit and 5G connectivity. That said, its coverage with fixed very high capacity networks and fiber to the premises has continued to grow steadily. Both are well above EU average. Ladies and gentlemen, the RRF is a unique and highly agile instrument. It was created as a recovery strategy in very difficult circumstances using structural reforms and investments as a way for EU countries to build back better for the future. It is also a unique chance to strengthen competitiveness, advance with Europe's economic and social convergence, and promote sustainable growth for a longer term. So, congratulations to Estonia, its government and people on all the progress made so far. I look forward to seeing Estonia carrying out its recovery and resilience plan in full in coming years. This will help to build a more resilient and competitive Estonia and benefit the EU as a whole. Thank you, and with this we are moving to the ceremony of symbolical handing over of the first RRF payment to Estonia of 238.5 million euros. So, congratulations. Inside there is no cash, but a document acknowledging the payment.
Detailid kõik jäävad siia.
So all this information will be hidden in this document, but Madam Prime Minister, Mr. Dombrovskis, if you could be seated, and we'll continue this discussion on the stage. And now we'll talk about our competitive EU, Estonia, and what is the role of the RRF. And I would like to moderate Mr. Hans Luik to welcome to the stage.
Good morning. I'm more than happy to be here to facilitate your conversation. Also, while the organizers asked me to do this, I'm a publisher and a journalist, they must have known that I have a somewhat intrusive style, the type of BBC hard talk, just in order to serve better with our audience to get the utmost information out of you. My first question goes to Prime Minister Kaja Kallas. Kaja, do you happen to know what is the very intimate link of Valdis Dombrovskis to Estonia? A very intimate one.
I would say Andrus Ansip, but I don't know, actually.
Mr. Valdis Dombrovskis, years ago, confessed to me while I was interviewing previous Prime Minister of Latvia for Latvian Delphi, one detail which he never had before revealed to the Latvian audience. Valdis Dombrovskis' grandmother is Herta Saar from Haapsalu city.
Oh.
Yes, whom Mr. Dombrovskis' grandfather, who was sailing seas, met in Haapsalu. Is this right, Mr. Valdis?
Yes.
Good.
So apparently Estonia is a feeding ground for Latvian prime ministers because also, I mean, Kristianis is, I think, grandma was Livonian, so also speaking
really?
Estonian and.
Okay. So the first question for both of you, maybe Kaja Kallas would like to be the first one to answer. We have been hearing encouraging details about how the Recovery and Resilience Facility is being adopted and what the sums are. We are not happy in Estonia that the sums happen to be smaller than we expected, but this is due to a very good reason. And what could be the obstacles on the way of pushing European economy to be more competitive? And my question particularly is there also some quiet protectionism happening within EU market? Kaja Kallas, be so good.
Yeah, well, I think first of all, it is good that we have lessons learned from other crises and crises that we had before with the finance crisis and every crisis that we have built our lessons and resilience to go into next crisis on the lessons we learned from there. Right now, I mean, of course, we have to put all those funds in practice, and there's a lot of questions around flexibility. But coming to your question, what concerns me the most on the European level is the protectionism in disguise. I mean, many big countries in Europe are only looking towards, America. How do we compete with them? They come up with the IRA, and the reaction from the European side is...
The Inflation Reduction Act.
Inflation Reduction
more
Act.
More than 1.3 trillion.
Yes. And
more than 0.3 trillion US dollars.
And the reaction from the European side is, let's allow more state aid. What state aid really means is that, you put government money into subsidizing enterprises, but you don't deal with the actual competitive problems that we have in Europe towards United States. And who wins from this is the richer countries. But even in the end, eventually the rich countries will run out of taxpayers' money to put into as subsidies in the companies. And so what we see on the European level is that we are like out-subsidizing each other, competing towards each other, which means that we are throwing the single market out of the window. And that is very problematic, because we have to build on our strengths. And what is the strength of Europe is the access to the single market. So there is not a single region in the world where you have 500 million people that you can, as a company, have a market to. So if we throw this out because you only see the competitiveness or competition with the United States, then actually we do more harm to Europe and European economy.
Mr. Vice President, would you like to bring some particular examples of protectionism which you have been observing?
First of all, maybe coming to this broader question, one can say indeed that this Inflation Reduction Act was also as some kind of a wake-up call in the EU, not only kind of how to specifically deal with the discriminatory provisions in Inflation Reduction Act itself, but also look at the broader EU competitiveness challenges. And indeed, there are some long-standing challenges, like productivity growth in the EU is lagging behind productivity growth in US, in China, and other major economies already for decades. So there are issues which we need to address, and that's where indeed the range of initiatives come in, like our Green Deal Industrial Plan, Net Zero Industry Act, also elements which Prime Minister just mentioned, like temporary state aid frameworks, but where I think it's indeed a very valid point that we need to be careful with a state aid, not to destroy the level playing field and cohesion within the single market. So that's why it's important that also these temporary state aid frameworks are accompanied with certain EU-level funding instruments, where some of this is reflected also in the midterm review of the EU's multi-annual financial framework, which we had put forward in June as European Commission, and we hope that member states will be able to finalize those discussions in due course. Indeed, it's something to closely follow, that it do not lead to distortions and correspondingly challenges to the cohesion within the EU.
Could you still kindly bring some examples of protectionism which the EU is facing?
You mean internally or externally? That's a very broad question.
Whatever. Just be particular, please.
Well, to be particular, we were just discussing the Inflation Reduction Act, which certainly has elements of protectionism, and that's what we have how to deal with. For example, if US is putting in a number of industries domestic content, domestic assembly requirements, is discriminatory against EU companies, so we need to see how we are responding to these kind of provisions.
Kaja Kallas, would you like to add?
Yes, I think in a broader sense, but we don't solve it here. Of course, in a broader sense, the agricultural policy is all about protectionism, actually. But this is a very big bite. I mean, our farmers say that they could compete if there wouldn't be so big subsidies on some of the bigger countries or older European Union countries, and that goes also outside. Of course, there is the talk about strategic autonomy in very many aspects, but we have to see that when we talk about strategic autonomy and implement it in a way, then it doesn't mean that we are actually just trying to, sugarcoat this or to do something undercover with this. And that's why I say that it's a protectionism in disguise. It's never, said out so loudly that this is what it's all about.
Okay, just to return to the US Inflation Reduction Act, which is more than $0.3 trillion. This also concerns supporting production in America of electric vehicles, of power generators of new generation. Chancellor Olaf Scholz has been addressing this issue while his visit to America. Also, some other European leaders. Have there been any effect to that? Do you think this is negotiable? So, also, Mr. Dombrovskis, could you please name some of the companies which pop up in your head, some European companies which have been announcing setting up new production facilities in the United States?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, first of all, indeed, that's something on which we had been engaging with US intensively ever since adoption of this Inflation Reduction Act. Well, in terms of specifically electrical vehicles, well, we managed to land it in halfway acceptable solution through the broad interpretation of provision of commercial vehicles, which covers also electrical cars leased to private individuals, and this covers, according to the information provided by car makers, some 70% of the market. So there is something which is, as I said, halfway addressed. Then we are currently negotiating with US critical minerals agreement, which would allow us to have a free trade agreement partner equivalent treatment for the purposes of those critical raw materials and related value chains. Meaning non-discriminatory access also as regards those elements. There are some elements where I would say the outcome is not so satisfactory, like, for example, on domestic assembly requirements. There were ways for US in their guidances to have kind of more flexible, more light touch interpretation of what domestic assembly means, but US went for actually quite demanding domestic assembly requirements. So it's still certainly requires engagements with US. Well, I will refrain now from naming the specific companies. It's maybe for companies to comment their specific plans and whether they are related or not to Inflation Reduction Act. But I just want to highlight that just, if I'm not mistaken, last week we have published a report on impacts of Inflation Reduction Act on the EU economy. Of course, we are still in early stages, so probably it's a bit early to draw too far-reaching conclusions, but some first elements are already visible in this study.
Okay. There's a member of your party, Kaja Kallas, Andrus Ansip, working as a member of Europarlament. And Andrus Ansip 1 year ago was tasked to lead the initiative of European microchip production in order to face the competition from Taiwan, South Korea, USA. I know it doesn't concern directly your competences, both of you, but has anyone have heard what's coming out of it? It was been declared that 43 billion euros are going to be devoted to European chip production. Is this going to happen? Really?
Actually, I must say I'm very surprised that Andrus Ansip is actually dealing with something related to the European Parliament. But
that was
this is
a joint
the first
commission.
time I hear it, really. So that is a big surprise to me. I only know that he's commenting on the domestic politics, but I didn't know that he's doing something. That is very interesting. I will look into it. He's actually doing something in the European
Mr.
Parliament.
Dombrovskis, any comment to that? Or?
Well, as regards those microchips, indeed, as you know, we have also our European Chips Act, and the aim is actually to double our chips production, indeed to have some more resilience of supply in case of certain disruptions. We are also coordinating this work closely with US. We will probably not achieve perfect complementarity of our efforts, but we also should try to avoid perfect duplication of our efforts, so to find the right balance there. And I would say, well, you mentioned this specific example on microchips, but it's across many policy areas where we are seeing this paradigm shift from moving, so to say, of efficiency-oriented supply chains to resilience-related supply chains. So this paradigm shift from efficiency to resilience does take place across different sectors.
Okay. Mr. Vice President, my next question will concern China. And at first, I will say that about Chinese chip production, which we very bravely indeed try to counter now. It's a brave attempt, at least from European side, to start our own really nano-small chip production on European soil. But the latest new Huawei telephone was reported to contain the type of very small nanometer chips, which nobody even knew that communist China would be able to produce. They normally lag far behind as compared to Taiwanese good chips. But this fall, you made a visit to Beijing, to the so-called Chinese People's Republic.
Raising from EU side, side is a question. Here, our trade deficit with China reached almost 400 billion euros. And okay, we're not seeking balanced trade with every country in the world. That's not the way international trade works. But you know, figure this size raises certain concerns, and we need to look what is going on. Correspondingly, we are focusing on questions on market access issues which European companies are facing to address this imbalance. And then we are looking on specific sectors ranging from agricultural, foodstuff sectors to cosmetics, to medical devices, to other. We have some outcomes in some of the sectors which we now need to follow up. And another point which I was raising with the Chinese counterparts was more horizontal question of data flows. Because what is happening in China recently, they have passed series of legislations related to national security, data flows, but which is actually complicating the life quite substantially for internationally active companies, not only European companies, but also even Chinese internationally active companies, because, well, data flows is integral part of doing business nowadays. And if there are requirements in Chinese law saying that, you know, companies need to seek permission of transferring important data abroad, but then nobody has defined what is important data, then there is certain difficulty. So we agreed also to have certain mechanism of engagement of providing more clarity to European companies how those data provisions are actually to be applied, hopefully in a workable way, and we did have a dedicated work stream specifically also in area of financial services as regards those data flows. So that was one horizontal issue which we had been raising. So in broad is how to address the imbalance in our economic relations.
Well, negotiating in China has never been easy, has it? And I would like to ask Kaja Kallas maybe to add to this topic, keeping in mind that you have been bravely addressing the issue about aggressor Vladimir Putin's war mechanism being still available to get those modern chips, optics, drones, whatever, through third countries. Would you have any idea how to make, how to implement some diplomatic force on China to stop doing that?
Well, you know, the topic of China is very, very fascinating. I mean, when you bring in Russia, we have seen what, you know, building your dependencies on third countries who are not your friends brings about when we talk about Nord Stream, for example. But China is doing it in a more clever way. I mean, geographically, they are not the center of the world, but they have created a situation and by, you know, small steps are taking this, that they are the center of the world by, you know, technology and those little pieces that we have in our technology so that we can't really overlook them. It is not that aggressive as Russia has done it, and therefore it sort of goes under the radar. But we have to keep this in mind, and therefore we also have to look at the, you know, the public procurement rules that we have. I mean, how to reduce the dependencies on the third-party actors that are not friendly towards us. And there, I think. Because every connection you have is somewhat makes you weaker because you're dependent on the other side. One side of the connection might also hurt you in this regard. When it comes to China and Chinese manufacturing, I think what the European Commission has done with addressing the issue of subsidizing of the electric cars, I think this is good to show that this is not equal footing competition that we have there really going on, and I think those little steps we have to take, but we shouldn't be naive. Also towards China and how they act. We have said on the European level and NATO's level, you know, China is not our adversary in some way, but we definitely have to, you know, risk. Bring our risks down regarding Chinese production, Chinese activity, really. Is it easy? It's not easy because they have, you know, different types of ways to address this issue. And I mean, also when we compare, we are not. We are democracies where you know, China is not operating the same way.
That's no news. Let me bring you a very murky and distinct example about what China is doing in order to facilitate the so-called double use components to Russia, to Russia's war mechanism. Not long ago, me and former Communication Minister Raivo Vare had a chance to interview European Commission Special Envoy of Sanctions, Mr. O'Sullivan, David O'Sullivan. So here's what he said. He has been traveling to Kazakhstan, Armenia, Georgia, United Emirates, Turkey. He's going the third time because he's seeing that this type of double-use products still are flowing through Turkey. But then, when we asked the question from the special envoy, which percentage of those very smart pieces of technology are flowing to Russian Federation through the so-called People's Republic? He said it is 78%. So naturally we asked, have you been visiting Beijing? No, I haven't, Mr. Sullivan said. Are you planning this year? No, I'm not. And that's because Vice President Valdis Dombrovskis just lately was in Beijing. So, Mr. Dombrovskis, did you also address the problem how China, as a third country towards the Western coalition, is facilitating this huge amount of technology which is enabling the aggressor's war mechanism? Did you or did you not address this issue? And if positive, then to which results?
Well, indeed, I did raise this issue in my engagements both with Vice Premier He Feng and also with Commerce Minister Wang Wentao, highlighting once again the priority list of the dual-use items, which is agreed between EU, US, and some other countries, and calling Chinese out.
Although China also produces a lot of them by themselves.
That's why I was mentioning this priority list. So those are dual-use items which we see as a priority to make sure that they are not going towards Russia, because those are items which we then see in Ukraine battlefields. And kind of calling for a greater cooperation in this regard. I would say there is some willingness from China to engage on this. Of course, we'll have to see what it will mean in terms of practical implementation. I also highlighted that, for example, EU has already blacklisted 3 Hong Kong-based companies which were involved in those kind of transactions where those dual-use items were ending up in Russia, and stand ready to blacklist more both China and Hong Kong-based companies if we do not see action from Chinese side. Of course, there it's worth noting that there are 2 elements, and this kind of blacklisting of companies may be more effective against the question of sanctions circumvention. It's really less to do with so-called backfilling, where other countries, including China, are providing items which may be replacing Western supplies of those dual-use items.
Okay, I think Mrs. Prime Minister would support the idea which we presented to the Special Envoy of European Sanctions. And the idea would concern your area of activities, Mr. Dombrovskis, because this concerns the euro. And one of your tasks, as I understand, is to enlarge to promote the euro turnover, of euro currency. And the question was that, understandably, the US sanctions are much more up to the point, because the United States uses a mechanism which the European Union detests. It's being called, and you as a lawyer will understand it, extraterritorial measures. The US famous Department of Justice which has a small department called the FBI, is able to sue anyone, anywhere on the planet for breaching the US legislation. Of course, the US is not in a position of forcing foreign citizens to comply. But here's what they tell to, for instance, the large European financial institutions, Swedbank and Danske, which have been committing the biggest money laundering operations so far in European history. They say that we are not in a position to force you to follow the US legislation because you are a foreign country. But in case you would like to prolong your commercial activities, we would ban the access to US dollar for your company, which of course means the end of any financial company or any Turkish trader who is facilitating microchips or military optics to Putin. So what do you think, Kaja? Would the Eurozone, which Estonia is proudly a part of, would the Eurozone countries be able to use the same sanction as a whip? You stop facilitating the dual-use products to Russia, otherwise you lose the access to euro currency. First, Mrs. Kaja, and then Mr. Valdis.
I totally agree that we have to think outside of the box, thinking of different means that we can use in order to pressure Russia to stop this war, and or the oligarchs or people who are dealing with Russia either directly or indirectly. I mean, this is also in relation to the use of frozen assets, for example. And the argument contrary is that because you have the central bank assets, then it will weaken the euro because nobody trusts the currency anymore.
Right, that's quite another question.
Yeah,
but
no. But it's tied to your question because it's a similar thing.
Kaja, I'd like to take this separately, but just you will be voting for using the denial of access to euro currency as a punishment.
Yes, but the worry why I'm bringing this example is that in terms of international arena, dollar and euro is not, they are not on equal footing when we look at the use of the currency.
Yes, the reserve currencies, the proportion of reserve currencies, of course.
So that is a problem. So
should we or shouldn't we force our EU sanctions with the help of threatening to cut the access to euro for those third country companies who are in breach of our sanctions?
As I said, I support everything that is working, but to be very realistic, as I am around those tables where those discussions are, I'm not very optimistic that that's going to be put into place.
Okay. Mr. Dombrovskis, when we asked this question from David O'Sullivan, his answer was just shocking. He told that, well, I honestly don't know how it would work. I don't know, said the chief European whip of implementing our sanctions. Do you have a better answer?
Well, first of all, maybe in defense of David O'Sullivan, his responsibility is to deal with sanctions implementation, meaning implementing of those sanctions which are decided, not those sanctions which are not decided. So I think it's possible that he is not aware of all the details of sanctions which are not decided. So that's, but I think Prime Minister Rodi responded to this question that to agree on sanctions we need unanimity of member states. And already when we are dealing with a topic of, for example, use of frozen or immobilized Russian assets. Those concerns of role of euro and so on are actually surfacing among a number of member states. So currently the Commission is still working actually on this proposal on how to use for using of proceeds from immobilized Russian assets to support Ukraine, and I hope we'll be able to put forward this proposal soon.
Really?
The work is ongoing. Of course, it also requires, so to say, support from the EU member states that we are putting forward the proposal. In a sense, halfway is confident that it's actually passing the member states. That's why we put forward the options note on how this could be done already in September, and that's currently being discussed among member states. There are other financial sanctions which we are already using, like the swifting of financial institutions, or just outrightly blacklisting a certain third country companies. So he was mentioning some Hong Kong-based companies, but there are also, for example, certain Iranian companies which are blacklisted, which were linked to this supplies of Shahed drones to Russia. So there are also certain ways how we can exercise influence on third country companies. But of course, to the extent possible, we are trying to negotiate with the third countries of concern and try to reach a cooperation for those countries, because they are legally not obliged to follow our sanctions. So there are certain means of persuasion which we can use, but if we can get engagement and certain commitment of countries themselves,
or would not be willing to use them, so let the Americans do it. They are exterritorial, they are aggressive, and I hope they are efficient. We will see after Chinese President Xi will meet Joe Biden in the very soonest future. Here's a question which I thought would be a perfect fit for you too. It's a question about Ukraine. It's a question about the blocked reserves of Russian central bank, which should be there in the volume of 300 billions. It's a huge sum. It's not 300 millions, but billions. But evidently, even the members of the Western coalition, keep aside Belgium and Canada, they are not even willing to report how much money of the aggressor central bank have they been effectively blocking. So, Kaja Kallas, you were boldly talking about confiscating the aggressor's foreign reserves 1 year ago. This was a wish which you expected to turn into reality. And this was shortly before the 30th of November last year, when President Ursula von der Leyen expressed just the same. We have been able to block those billions, however much there are, and the idea is to direct them to Kiev for recovery, just for recovery. That's a good idea. 1 year has passed. Mm-hmm. What do you think, what's wrong with this sanction mechanism of the Western coalition? We all understood, that even before the war, the great European war broke out, the Western coalition was threatening Putin that you will see sanctions which the world has never seen. We will turn ruble to ruble, which is what President Joe Biden said. Well, European Commission, also European Council, and also the US Congress has huge legal support bureaucracies. So within 2 years, no decision has been made how to use those billions which Ukraine is just crying for. At the same time, I understand that the Recovery and Resilience Facility of the EC was being financed by Eurobonds. Issue of Eurobonds, quite unprecedented. So Kaja Kallas first, and then Valdis Dombrovskis, who also, by the way, has been serving as European Commissioner of Finance. Would you be able to see this as a solution to directing arrested or blocked Russian reserves to Ukraine when we, as Europe, pledge those amounts, those millions on the accounts and issue Eurobonds? So Russia will fully maintain their claim to this money after the war comes to the end. Or is it a good idea?
This is what we have done in Estonia. We did the law because in Hague there is a registry for the war damages that is kept every day, all the damages that Russia is causing. So Ukraine has a legitimate claim towards Russia of those damages. Now we have the assets of Russia and the oligarchs that have, oligarchs that are sanctions, which means that this tie with the regime has already been established. So we recognize the legitimate claim that Russia has towards us. So now we make a settlement of those claims. We don't say that we are confiscating the funds or the assets, but we are saying that, yes, if you pay all the reparations to Ukraine, and there is something left over, we will give you this back, or Ukraine will give this back, because we have made a settlement there, and you can ask this there. And we have, can I say it's bulletproof? Of course, as a lawyer, I know that nothing is bulletproof. I can also...
You mean our proposal?
But on the European Commission side, I've been pushing this also. What the argument against this is that, there is the right to property, but that has already been breached by the sanctions. So we have to think how we can use the assets of Russia in favor of Ukraine, and therefore I continue pushing this.
Valdis Dombrovskis, isn't our Prime Minister being very distinct and innovative here? How is her idea? Did you think the same? Why is it not moving anywhere?
Well, first of all, I would outline three elements. So first, we already discussed this work which is currently ongoing on Commission's legislative proposal on use of proceeds from immobilized Russian assets to support Ukraine. Second, actually something practically is already happening. For example, recently Belgium, where bulk of the funds took a decision of using or taxing...
This is not talk about the big body on those billions. This is just, as you mentioned, the proceeds.
Yeah, but anyway, it's already taxing the proceeds from the Russian assets, and using this money for Ukraine is already generating some revenue stream. And then I would highlight another element, which is G7 decision that Russia will only be able to get its immobilized assets, including central bank assets, after reparations to Ukraine have been paid. And that's, I think, kind of maybe Estonia, with a proposal where Prime Minister just described, is making already next step in this regard, but this G7 decision of not unblocking those assets as long as reparations are being paid is a first step in the same direction.
So, just a shame it takes so long while Ukraine is bleeding. One last question about Ukraine. Ukraine's state budget is in the amount of about 56 billion euros, out of which Ukraine itself can provide just 16 out of 56. For the rest, they are looking for Western help, and they have been receiving Western help until Congressman Mike Johnson took over the Speaker's position in US Congress, And then the MAGA fraction, as I understand, is telling that, yes, they are going to support Ukrainian war effort, but no, they are not happy to sponsor Ukraine's state bureaucracy. Also, the salaries of the teachers, the medical workers, Zelensky's big administration, and so forth. What happens if the US doesn't come with the money to support Ukraine state budget, and the EU has to put, well, in unison of maybe Australia, maybe Canada, to put up the 40 billion? Are we able to do this? Are we able to fulfill the gap within Ukraine's state budget without the United States?
First of all, if we are talking this year, one can say that the financing gap for Ukraine for this year is broadly covered, and our macrofinancial assistance plus program, 18 billion euros, is on track. We already disbursed 15 billion, and I think things are on track for remaining two disbursements of remaining 3 billion euros. For the next year, or rather next 4 years, from European Commission side, we have put forward a proposal for Ukraine facility of 50 billion euros, and I would say the first issue is to make sure that EU member states reach agreement on this quickly, because we're already in November, and Ukraine needs this money as of beginning of the next year. So indeed it's important that those discussions among EU member states are being finalized, and the money from EU side is available, and I would say that covers a substantial part of Ukraine's financing need. Of course, US is an important donor, so we do hope that US at the end of the day will also provide their part. We had been raising it obviously with our US counterparts. I personally had been raising it with Janet Yellen, US Treasury Secretary, and well, she was reassuring that they are confident they will find ways how to ensure that this financing to Ukraine is flowing, and also contributions from other donors and from International Monetary Fund. So in a sense, it's indeed, it's a collective effort where I would say the Western democratic world in very broad sense, because not all of those countries are Western, should work together both to support Ukraine and to put pressure on aggressor Russia.
Fair enough. Just before I let you go, would you please give one good note about what European Union is good at? I will begin with that. According to what former transport director of Euro Commission, Mr. Hololei, told, that our trains, I mean Siemens and those French one, Alcatel, I believe it was, are the best. Our trains are best. They by far exceed the American trains, and the Chinese lag back also. Our trains. What is good? What would we be boasting with? Kaja, please.
We have good people, we have smart people, and we have to do everything that this smartness stays here.
Exactly. Mr. Vice President.
I would argue that actually there are many things, but I would highlight actually Europe's unique model of a social market economy, which I think it's serving as well, and probably makes Europe the best place in the world to live and work in. So I think we need to build on this strengths of our model of social market economy.
Thank you. Don't those fine Baltic politicians deserve a good applause? Thank you. Thank you, Valdis. Great commission.
Ja, aitäh selle debati eest.
Thank you very much. Thank you for moderating this debate. And before we go back to green investments and we talk about REPowerEU, we have few videos. and to get you in the right mindset.
Tere, minu nimi on Ivar Kruusenberg ja ma olen ettevõtte PowerUp Energy Technologies
My name is Ivan Kruusenberg from PowerUp.
Vesinik on ütlematu oluline.
What is hydrogen? It's a very important energy carrier. And since hydrogen is one of the few good alternatives for fossil fuels, how do we use it? So hydrogen is being used mostly in the chemical and metalworking sectors, for example, as a reducer. But we have an increasing trend to use hydrogen in the transport sector, for example, for trains, cars, buses, and other vehicles as a fuel. Why is hydrogen good? So as it has been said, that hydrogen is a very good energy carrier. So therefore, if we replace currently used fossil fuels with hydrogen, we can reduce the CO2 and other particles in atmosphere. Is green hydrogen expensive? Green hydrogen production is about 2.5 to 6 euros. And with that price, we can sell hydrogen in stations, so it will be competitive with diesel and petrol. And for a client, for covering 100 kilometers, you actually spend the same amount as you spend right now for petrol. Can we produce green hydrogen in Estonia? In Estonia, we have a great potential for the production of green hydrogen, especially if we can build wind farms and if we can use solar panels for energy production.
Ja, millises seisus me oleme?
So what is the situation right now? And whether the Recovery and Resilience Facility and REPowerEU have brought us closer to green hydrogen or not, then we can discuss this in the next round. So I'm waiting for this clear signal. I'm trying to find out whether one of the guests who was supposed to be here is actually has joined us online.
Participate in our next conversation, but the situation has been changed, and I'm so sorry that you, Matthew, can't be here with us in Tallinn today, but I hope you're doing well, and we will see you soon in Tallinn. Hi.
Good morning, honourable ministers, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, indeed, I'm delighted to be with you today, and I'm sorry it's only a virtual presence, and I'm looking forward to a real vivid exchange of views in this really well thought and thought through and well put together conference that you put on today, focusing on how the European REPower plan can reduce our collective dependency on fossil energy sources, particularly of course from Russia, and stimulating our renewable energy uptake. I'll try to be as short as possible because it's very painful listening to people speaking too long online. I know that. I'm really sorry I can't be with you in person. My back flared up at the end of last week, and I took the decision it was unwise to travel. It's better now, but I'm sorry I can't be with you. To recall briefly what we know in terms of the big picture. We have the European Green Deal. Our overarching policy priority is the Commission, focused on delivering climate neutrality by 2050. Then post-COVID, we have the next generation EU recovery instrument promoted through the Recovery and Resilience Facility. When then in 2022 comes the REPowerEU plan, the EU's energy response, if you will, to the shameful war of aggression waged by Russia against Ukraine, with its knock-on impact on energy, focusing on rapidly reducing our dependence on Russian fossil fuels in different ways, by saving energy, by diversifying our supplies of energy, and by fast-forwarding the clean transition. So, if you like, short, medium, and long-term policy focuses. In the people were surprised at the extent of the EU's unity and the speed of the EU response. And I think generally this has been viewed as very impressive, not just by the Commission, but I think collectively we've done a good job. We've also collectively achieved, broadly speaking, our short-term objectives under REPowerEU. Taken together with the different emergency regulations we adopted last year, contributed to lowering the gas prices, which at the height of the crisis went higher than 300 euros per megawatt hour. They're now down to about 40 euros per megawatt hour. It's still roughly twice the pre-war levels and fluctuating. So we're not out of the woods. There's no room for complacency. In slightly more detail, what have we done in terms of diversifying energy imports? I know it's particularly interesting in Estonia, of course. Russian gas supplies are plummeted from 155 billion cubic meters per year before the crisis to around 40 billion cubic meters today. Pipeline gas from Russia has gone from around 50% of our overall gas supplies to less than 10%. This has been achieved by a very rapid collective outreach action with international partners, helping the EU to bring in additional liquefied natural gas, LNG, and gas pipeline imports from non-Russian gas sources by around an additional 70 BCM in 2022. We set up at great speed, and this is my day job, if you like, the EU energy platform, which has contributed significantly to EU diversification plans via this outreach effort and via demand aggregation as the first steps towards joint purchasing. We've had, in fact, 3 successful tendering rounds over the course of this year, resulting in aggregated demand of around 45 billion cubic meters, receiving supply offers of more than 50 billion cubic meters, and we've matched around 35 BCM partially or entirely between supply and demand. We have 170 companies involved. I think taken together, this degree of reaction shows that this is a potentially very effective tool in leveraging the EU's political and marketing weight. And it's interesting in the context of the ongoing negotiations on the proposed hydrogen and decarbonised gas market. It's the co-legislators are discussing how to prolong what we call aggregate EU, which is this mechanism for purchasing gas beyond 2024, and even expanding this mechanism to other products such as renewable hydrogen and other renewable gases. The second thing we've done, of course, is gas savings, reducing the energy we spend. We save in the EU 18% of our gas consumption over the year from August to August 2022-2023, exceeding in fact the 15% target set out in the regulation that we agreed at great speed in July.
Matthew, thank you for this quick overview and putting us in a bigger picture. Läheme siit edasi lavalt nüüd siis eesti keele.
Now we will continue in Estonian here on stage, and I would like to ask on stage Minister of Climate, Kristen Michal, Rene Tammist from Utilitas, and representative of Bioforce, Siim Tenno.
Te korraks tervitada ka isegi on hea sellisel külmal ajal, nagu kindla sammuga tulla lavale. Aga, ja võtame kohe istet ka oma.
Let's have a seat. Kristen Michal, I would like to start from some of the figures that we heard in the first half of the day. So let's look at the total funding in RRF, but also REPowerEU separately. So in the introduction to the program, it seemed that our major challenge is the 18% that currently we have been able to realize in the plans. So what is the current state of affairs from the point of view of the government? 82% to go. 2026 is the year after next, really, almost here. Well, yes, it is. In my area of work, I would say that by way of introduction, and we were just discussing with Rene Tammist that climate policy, or in the EU in general, there's lots of people who say that these changes are bad. We shouldn't go along with it, but when they see the practical implications, they want to come along with it. And in our sector, it's investment into strengthening networks, into hydrogen, into the pilot projects of storage. Tens of millions from this external funding sources, and this is all directed at one simple thing: to make sure that Estonian people would have cleaner, more affordable energy. The competitiveness of the economy would increase, and let's put it that way, that I believe that the next big goal that Estonia as a whole, and the public sector and private sector and all NGOs should contribute towards, is making sure that we don't only create the capacity, but against the capacity would have new added value export capable industries, also in services. This for us is the biggest challenge, in addition to the figures. And on the whole, of course, Estonia in general terms in contributing public sector has been one of the first in the EU and one of the best also in using up the funding. But by way of introduction, I would say that it's probably worthwhile outside this forum and outside this hall to describe the benefits, the gains, more. Well, of course, better life in the future, more affordable, cleaner energy, and added value. Maybe somebody somewhere has seen a drop in prices. I have not seen it in Estonia, and when prices are not going down, that means added value needs to go up if we want to live a better life. Well, we'll come back to how to better achieve it. And since we have two examples up on stage, then let's review them. Let's start, Rene, with Utilitas Wind. Why did you ask for funding? And I'll already say that you have carried out two projects in the framework of this program. So yes, I agree with the Honourable Minister. RRF has turned out to be a necessary and good measure to co-finance companies' investments. Without it, we, with high probability, would not have made these investments and would not currently be planning them either. As to one of them, when we speak about Utilitas operations more broadly, not only wind farms, then heat storage unit, we already have a positive decision on it. There are 3 of them in Rapla, Jõgeva, and Tallinn. There's a problem with the sound of the speaker. So yes, 3 heat storage units. And well, we can see what it looks like in a drawing. I understand that there's this big container or tank. The idea is that cogeneration plants, boiler houses, generated heat from wood chips would be directed into this big tank, also the residual heat. And with the help of this, we smooth out the peak consumption. So when you have the moment when you have to, with current technology, use a gas boiler house to cover peak consumption, peak demand, then you take the hot water from this storage unit. And this allows us to smooth out the peak of demand with renewable sources, reduce gas consumption. That's a big objective of REPowerEU. And also operate renewable energy capacity in a more optimal way that we have already installed, and it improves the production continuity as well. And without the co-financing, we would not have been able to make these investments. We'll get back to it. And I saw Siim nodding his head. And I'd like to understand this separately. Why don't we do things that are useful without external funding? The second project is completely different in nature, a different approach. That has to do with hydrogen. What is that about? As to hydrogen, actually, Ivar Krusenberg, the minister, and previous speakers already mentioned the 50 million for the whole chain. We have submitted our application, and right now we don't know yet which projects have received the funding. So you're putting pressure on the Commission right now. So hopefully this project will also get approval. We see a fueling station here, but what is the essence of the application? Well, yes, the context is that our energy generation complex next to Tallinn would receive an additional 1 megawatt of hydrogen production unit hydrolyzer, and additionally to add a fueling station and hydrogen vehicles. This investment would come in addition to the hydrogen production complex that will be opened next year, together with 2 fueling stations. And the containers that you saw in the video clip, there is hydrogen production unit, electrolyzer in 1, gas separator, a purifier, and then water purification, cooling, and a smaller container. We had compressor, and in the visual you see a hydrogen tank, which can be used to transport the hydrogen to another fueling station or to other stakeholders, and a fueling solution as well. So basically, if I understand correctly, then if this decision comes, it will be the biggest hydrogen production complex in Estonia. Yes. So this is meant to expand the existing hydrogen production complex and to add another fueling station and to acquire vehicles. See, Bioforce produces biogas, and here we have to say that you did not receive support for production of biogas, but for what? So we have 2 production units in Ebavere and Aravete where we produce biogas, and from that we produce biomethane, which close to 100% is used in Tallinn public transportation buses. So we produce transportation fuel, but with RRF funds, we thought we would take a step forward. The biomethane production and transportation and usage is ongoing, but we were maybe not brave enough, or we had to help along the Excel sheets. So we applied for support for biomethane production, CO2 liquefying, another type of product. So right now we are engaged in. So can we look at your process? So we have an English language description here. It basically means that the CO2 up until now has been a byproduct of the production, and now you capture it and liquefy it. Yes, the green circle is the biogas world, and the gray is taking from the Earth's crust and not putting it back. So the green circle means that we put it back in the plants and the cows eat it, and the green cycle does not create additional burden for Earth. But in biomethane production, we have a bio product, and we want to improve our footprint, so we want to capture the CO2. Where will you use it? Who is your client? Because in liquefied form, it is something you can commercialize. Currently, it's a component of the chemical industry, food industry. We look at the next slide, then it shows the different sectors of usage. Right now, we are where the red circle is. We capture or will capture the CO2 by the end of next year. Right now, we are in the construction phase and permitting phase. We think our life will get more exciting. So here you can see what else can be done with the CO2. There are different sectors, different areas of activity. CO2 with hydrogen is methanol, can make ethane again, put it in Coca-Cola. And on the side here, we see that what comes from the cow goes to the food industry. I drink the Coca-Cola and continue the chain. Yes. A very interesting scheme, and lots of ways to use CO2. I'm reminded of how we speak about how in the light of Narva and oil shale, we could use these possibilities, but let's leave that at that. You both said that you needed to help the Excel sheet along. Why? If it makes sense, it's a reasonable thing to do, then why doesn't the Excel in the current economy make ends meet? Why do you need the external funding? Well, if we sell the CO2 molecule with a green background in comparison to refining plant CO2 molecule, then our production cost is higher right now. And if we sell it at the same market, then we're not competitive. So it's cheaper not to use it and emit it. Yes, with RRF funding, we don't have to pay extra, probably. Does it mean that the additional money you need consistently, or when biogas production is expanded, then will it pay off? Let's put it this way. We got involved in this market 2 or 3 years ago. So in the 2 years, a lot has changed. And when we started negotiating regarding marketing the molecule, now there are clients who ask for green CO2 molecule, are willing to pay extra for it. So let's put it this way. By now, it's clear that the situation has changed so much that we probably can turn it into a profitable undertaking, but to add additional value and make even more products is more interesting.
So when we talk about peaks, why wouldn't it work without subsidies? Because when we talk about alleviating peaks and when it comes to hydrogen, then as it was mentioned, then Excel does not really function very well because it doesn't really give this positive effect. In order to reduce the peaks, then the question is in regulation, and the competition board has a certain regulative behavior. So how do they assess our assets? And right now, when it comes to these investments, then this would have not been part of the assets which we could have handled in this particular way. So therefore, we had to find alternative ways how to deal with this investment. So perhaps this is a wider question and it needs a more thorough explanation or discussion, but these just things are as they are. When it comes to hydrogen, then so 98% of the hydrogen consumed is produced from fossil sources, mostly from natural gas. And this price gap with the green hydrogen is it's quite big, and right now there is no other way right now to overcome this kind of price difference than having investment support measure. And our great expectation is that once this production starts, then we can sort out this chicken and egg situation, and we'll have additional consumption, which would then allow to reduce the price of hydrogen. And we have some new approaches globally as well, that we are planning to use heat, which is left over from production of hydrogen in our heating system, in the district heating, because often we're being criticized because we have losses, but this loss is due to thermal energy. And if you can use the thermal energy, then the losses will be greatly reduced. So maybe I would expand this topic, looking at the wind energy and the necessary investments. So planned investments from the Recovery Fund purchasing additional radars, then they would allow develop offshore wind farms with height restrictions, because this would not actually be possible without them. And these investments cannot be made by the private sector. It has to be state level. When it comes to the investments to transmission capability, then this is also very important, because we do know that the transmission capability is limited. And especially when it comes to the westerly direction, this is where the biggest wind energy potential is, which is where we are developing wind farms. Then we need to improve this grid. Listening to these speakers, Mr. Minister, then it is clear that this resilience plan is very good. Everything is good, financing, because otherwise these green projects will not happen. So then how can you change this general overview? So at one hand, we will have the expansion in the sector, and at the other hand, that when it comes to the competition, then the competition would not eat into the resilience fund. Because as we heard from Siim, that if we didn't have this one client who would request this green CO2, then the RRF would have not helped us either. So there are some kind of rules of this game where we can't really make many changes. So, but they might become an obstacle. Because often when it comes to the technological risks, then to overcome that and to enter the market, there is this sort of you need this possibility to get over the threshold. And when it comes to the new technologies, then RRF is fulfilling its role. So because you can nudge in different ways. One is from the market side, the sort of market demand for certain activities or new practices, new technologies. And as it has been described, that if this demand is there, then somebody will show up who will offer them and to cover this demand. And then the other side, we're looking at the and-win rules. What do we do in the society? And when it comes to pollution, well, of course, we need to reduce emissions. Of course, we want to live in a cleaner world. And if we talk about the oil refinery, then I'm not going to discuss this in greater detail, but the health board has we have possibility to improve public health, because we know that the expected life time of the children born in an industrial area is 5 years less than everywhere else. So this is why we need to push this. Of course, EU has big economic power, but in Estonia, where we can channel this money is with the help of businesses to improve the competitiveness, because the demand of foreign markets, we can't replace that. The rules are for equalization, to level this playing field for these who wants to create this cleaner world. So this is what we're trying to do, and both companies did describe that. This is what they're trying to go to. And but at the same time, somebody comes and looks at the prices and says that, well, the CO2 I'm going to get is 4 or 10 times cheaper. So yes, you produce this green and it looks really nice. I take a little bit to promote my brand, but the rest of it does not change, because fossil CO2 is much cheaper. Well, the rules will change over time, and so this window is becoming smaller and smaller. And what we found today, so when you talk about clean energy, then it's a question of competitiveness. There are some articles written about it in 10 or 15 years, or even earlier. It's a hygiene factor that you can't, for example, you can't refinance your loans if you have something go brown in your budget. In energy business, this is very clear. So financial sector will push, the consumers make this push. So we talk about clean production, different choices. We want to be competitive, and this competitiveness needs to function. So if we say that if we have give something from the recovery and resilience facility, then this is good, and then there's nothing else you have to worry about. We have to be competitive in this market as well, better practices, and we need market pressure and better solutions. Rene Tammist, early on, we looked at the state shared services Center and the Minister of Finance view, and I asked this from the Minister as well. But based on your own practical experience, then when it comes to the recovery facility, what is keeping businesses back, what we should focus on, understanding that these are the tools and these are the facility which needs to be put into use already. We do not have so much time. So to carefully consider everything as we wanted to do so far.
Well, a good example here is the hydrogen integral chain measure. I'm sure that there should be more interest to ask for this investment support if there were more time for implementation. because this large-scale industrial installation cannot be set up in this period of time. I understand that this is a specific measure that is directed at post-COVID recovery to also implement digital transition and green transition, but it is a very limited period of time and very restrictive. As to the rest of it, I believe that these is all understandable. The measures are necessary, and especially when we answer the previous question partially as well, then it's in all of our interests that the green reform would be carried out as quickly as possible to make investments that would help us move away from Russian gas to new clean sources, that we accelerate this process, and that we boost the new future economic activities that add value, especially during this period of time that we are currently in, that we've had several quarters of an economic downturn. Siim, looking at the big picture and your own experience, what currently seems to be the thing that needs to be adapted or adjusted? Well, or to criticize. No, I did not say that. No need to criticize. But since the change has really accelerated, we have high hopes for RED 3 that Europe in general has set its sights on, and countries now need to do their own regulations, and biomethane was sort of lagging behind, but with the recovery facility, it has its own rules so that there wouldn't be any contradictions. And then the legal side of it, that's something you really need to keep tabs on when you ask for some sort of a support, then you don't shoot your other foot in the process. With what, or how can that happen? With biomethane, for example, the certificates of origin are very important, so we had to be clear on it that if outside biomethane production we deal with CO2, then that would not give us a bad grading on our certificate of origin, so that it doesn't hinder our other business. So all these changes and all that nowadays, well, what I'd say and outline as something positive, and then companies you need to be active yourself and be in professional associations and participate, but there is a real interest in including you. So even if you're away for 6 months from Estonia, you come back, then well, it's the same for everyone. You're away in Helsinki for a day and come back and think, what's going on? No, that was a joke. Kristen, Michal. Well, as to the bigger ambition, there was some criticism that we heard that these large-scale projects, and it is understandable, there's no time to set them up during this period of time. I don't want to undervalue the tram track, but in the end, it's trams going back and forth. I'm sure it has an impact on GDP, and I don't want to sound ironic, but it's not production, like hydrogen production, CO2 liquefying projects. These are very big in scale. So can we really set up these production units? Because in the end, we can look at Just Transition Fund, Ida-Viru County, same problem there. We do see something is coming, but the bigger anticipated change is not in our sights yet. Can't really see it well. Well, let's put it this way. We need to keep the pace. I'd say that, of course, I understand Rene, and from our point of view as well, many projects will take more time. But on the other hand, we need to look at it when it comes to executive power and administration. We need to look at it as an environment where we need to accelerate some of our processes as well, and we need to seek the points of cooperation. Rather, I'd say it's worthwhile keeping pace as much as possible, because when we look at the bigger picture, then when it comes to climate policy, energy, all the changes going on in the world, then it's such a mega trend that over the next decade will redistribute a huge amount of resources, energy, future opportunities, etc. And in Estonia, in Europe, we need to decide what will our position be. Will we be among the leadership or not? And we might imagine that one or two big things will come and then it's done and that's enough, but not really. Like Rene and Siim described, there's change everywhere, and we all need to move forward, because otherwise we accomplish one or two things, but life will never be ready. Nothing will ever be fully completed. So fast pace, and with some projects the pace is too fast. I understand that, and it's been the same with the EU funding in the past. It will not change, but our task is to internally simplify it. In energy, we try to consistently have a debate regarding what we do. With REPowerEU funding, for example, the environmental board has hired 22 people whose only task is to deal with accelerating wind energy projects, and average permitting period is 12 days, so it's doable. Siim almost toppled over when he heard that term of 12 days, but we need to seek solutions together. Well, this is not the evening program Esimene stuudio, and there's no opposing each other. Then, well, that promise was 12 days, right? That's So here we have the experience of implementation and policy management on stage, and microphones in the audience to use. Then for a comment, you now have the opportunity. Maybe you want to ask, maybe you want to comment. Raise your hand, and we will bring the microphone to it. I have the lights in my eyes, so I can't see very well. But let's give it a try. Maybe somebody who on a daily basis is involved in these very same issues, and then let us know. Hans wants to ask. Well, you need to promise that you're not going to mention China. I don't want to edit you. Honorable Minister, I heard from one of your predecessors quite recently that they don't believe that Estonian bureaucracy would allow to fully use up the Estonian allocation from RRF. How would you comment? Well, Hans asked it in more concrete terms. I sort of was general. Well, experience tells me that when it comes to external funding and funding new activities, we've been one of the best in Europe. It's our task to use it up, but Hans, that is shared responsibility between public and private sector. Yes, there is time pushback, 50 million for hydrogen. The head of the Environmental Investments Board is sitting at the back of the hall. So we have projects submitted in the amount of 41 million. So it's up to us whether we organize a second call or take a different approach. I'd like to ask for Triin Tomingas. I believe that there is some tension here. Otherwise, Hans would not ask it, and we would not be wording it here. As the head of the department in the ministry, will it be used up or not? Yes, we cannot deny that there are some tensions. 2.5 years are left to use this facility. What's the tension about? Well, on the one hand, it is that we have set very clear milestones. We've given promises regarding the facility to receive payments. That on one hand, on the other hand, tension in the sense that quite a lot has changed in the world compared to when we started putting the plan together and agreeing on the measures. In the change process, we try to find flexibility as much as possible to better adjust the package of measures to the existing situation, but currently we do see that the interest to measures that used to be very popular has been more moderate, and the planned projects also have a longer implementation period and therefore are left aside. But there are also some that would fit in the time frame. But currently we see that economic operators are more cautious in investment decisions. So we are keeping eyes on the process and we are ready for negotiations with Brussels if necessary. I wanted to ask whether you have some preventative negotiations starting. It's called consulting, right? Consultations are underway. Well, we have regular consultations. We have very close cooperation with the Commission throughout the year, and we discuss the concerns that we see in the market to make sure that if we need to make changes, then everybody will have the same background, and we know what direction to run in to make sure that we can use the funding to the maximum. And we had a hand up at the back. Thank you, Honourable Minister. I would like to ask that we have Oprail company in railway that was involved in hydrogen engine reconstruction, and that was left in the background before. Well, the money has been invested, but there's nothing to haul. So otherwise, this investment would go to waste. Thank you, representative of trade union. Probably you know the processes within Oprail better than I do, as far as I know. Rail is not a strategic interest for Estonia. We pay extra to railway infrastructure, and Oprail should be sold off fully or in pieces. Any other questions? Maybe somebody else needs to sell something off. Well, we have an aviation company on our hands. It's been given away already, as far as I understand. Kristen, Michal, to finish with. Considering the timing and the current era and the tension of the processes, then maybe just your opinion. What how would you encourage entrepreneurs to jump on the train? How can we get the results from this fund? What should the logic be? Well, it's complicated to just encourage, but what I might say is that even if the pace slows down, the world is still moving towards cleaner, more contemporary direction. And that should serve as an encouragement to everyone to revise their choices. In the beginning, it might seem risky or complicated, but still. And secondly, that we're in it together. The current and future government success should also be measured according to what we've done with this funding, whether these have been sensible investments like renovation of buildings. Can we turn it into smart money? Can we improve the quality? Can we move forward with renewable energy sources at high pace? So the world is moving in the same direction, and Estonia is in it together. And thirdly, like I said, we are on the brink of a breakthrough, and this process, a lot of resources will be redistributed, choices for the future. Estonia has good foothold, but only if we use our digital structure, quick transfer, and we are capable of working together. As a former minister and entrepreneur, I agree with Kristen, with the minister here. We are moving in the right direction, and actually we need to move along at high pace. Last year, when Russia attacked Ukraine, then within Utilitas, we revised all our investment plans. What can we accelerate? And based on that, we immediately started realizing the plans. We saw our heat storage unit. There was another building that we're currently constructing with heating pumps in the photo, and that too helps us reduce gas consumption. And of course, we need to move along at high pace. But what matters is that this all takes place simultaneously, that public and private sector know what the developments are in each and sector, and we have this coordinated work. And like Siim said, and what we've seen is that you make an investment without knowing how the regulation will be formed or designed, like with the offshore wind farms and also onshore wind farms, that we're only looking for the solutions of how to realize and development is going on. We're investing millions of euros in it. So it is a risk, but also sharing the risk with the state so that everybody in society would be able to use these. So where do you get the time and resource to mess with the EU support? Don't you have your own business to attend to? So as a representative of a smaller business, how can you participate? Well, in that sense, yes. Let's put it that way. Being up to date on regulations is not only about support. You still need somebody in the company who understands the regulations, follows them, and is up to speed. And you need to contribute there. Otherwise, this fast train, you will miss it. Things will pass you by. We are looking at our niche, of course, and trying to be aware in our own business. So thank you to the panelists. And thank you to Matthew Baldwin as well for the introduction. So, thank you. And we have exhausted our planned agenda. Happy to invite all of you to lunch, and I'd like to remind you that we will also have a reception in the evening, and you will find more information on your invitation. Thank you for being here. Thank you for thinking along, and I wish everybody lots of strength and energy in their work.